John the cenobite. A brother lived in a cenobium, and he was a very vigorous ascetic. Some brothers who had heard about him in Scetes came to see him. They entered the place where he was working. He greeted them, and, turning around, went back to his work. When they saw what he was doing, the brethren said to him, "John, who clothed you in the habit? Who made you a monk? Have you not been taught to take the sheepskin from the brothers, and say to them, 'Let us pray,' or perhaps sit down?" He said to them, "John the sinner has no time to attend to that." Isidore the priest. It was said of Abba Isidore, priest of Scetes, that when anyone had a brother who was sick, or careless, or irritable, and wanted to send him away, he said, "Bring him here to me." Then he took charge of him, and by his long-suffering he cured him. A brother asked him, "Why are the demons so frightened of you?" The old man said to him, "Because I have practiced asceticism since the day I became a monk, and not allowed anger to reach my lips." He also said that for 40 years he had been tempted to sin in thought, but that he had never consented either to covetousness or to anger. He also said, "When I was younger and remained in my cell, I set no limit to prayer. The night was for me as much the time of prayer as the day." Abba Pimin used to say this about Abba Isidore. Every night he plaited a bundle of palms, and the brethren pleaded with him, saying, "Rest a little, for you are getting old." But he said to them, "Even if Isidore were burned, and his ashes thrown to the winds, I would not allow myself any relaxation, because the Son of God came here for our sake." The same Abba said concerning Abba Isidore, that his thoughts said to him, "You are a great man." He said to them, "Am I to be compared with Abba Antony? Am I become like Abba Pambo? Or like the other fathers who pleased God?" When he said this, he was at peace. When the demons who are at war with men tried to make him afraid, suggesting that after all this he would still go to hell, he replied, "Even if I am sent there, I shall find you beneath me." Abba Isidore said, "One day I went to the marketplace to sell some small goods. When I saw anger approaching me, I left the things and fled." Abba Isidore went one day to see Abba Theophilus, Archbishop of Alexandria, and when he returned to Scetes, the brethren asked him, "What is going on in the city?" But he said to them, "Truly, brothers, I did not see the face of anyone there except that of the Archbishop." Hearing this, they were very anxious and said to him, "Has there been a disaster there, then, Abba?" He said, "Not at all, but the thought of looking at anyone did not get the better of me." At these words they were filled with admiration, and strengthened in their intention of guarding the eyes from all distraction. The same Abba Isidore said, "It is the wisdom of the saints to recognize the will of God. Indeed, in obeying the truth, man surpasses everything else, for he is the image and likeness of God. Of all evil suggestions, the most terrible is that of following one's own heart, that is to say, one's own thought, and not the law of God. A man who does this will be afflicted later on, because he has not recognized the mystery, and he has not found the way of the saints, in order to work in it. For now is the time to labor for the Lord, for salvation is found in the day of affliction, for it is written, 'By your endurance you will gain your lives.'" Abba Pimin also said about Abba Isidore that wherever he addressed the brothers in church, he said only one thing, "Forgive me, your brother, so that you also may be forgiven." Isidore of Pelusia. Abba Isidore of Pelusia said, "To live without speaking is better than to speak without living. For the former who lives rightly does good even by his silence, but the latter does no good even when he speaks. When words and life correspond to one another, they are together the whole of philosophy. The same Abba said, "Prize the virtues, and do not be the slave of glory, for the former are immortal, while the latter soon fades." He also said, "Many desire virtue, but fear to go forward in the way that leads to it, while others consider that virtue does not even exist. So it is necessary to persuade the former to give up their sloth and teach the others what virtue really is." He also said, "Vice takes men away from God and separates them from one another. So we must turn from it quickly and pursue virtue, which leads to God and unites us with one another." Now, the definition of virtue and of philosophy is simplicity with prudence. He also said, "The heights of humility are great, and so are the depths of boasting. I advise you to attend to the first, and not to fall into the second." He also said, "The desire for possessions is dangerous and terrible, knowing no satiety. It drives the soul, which it controls, to the heights of evil. Therefore let us drive it away vigorously from the beginning, for once it has become master, it cannot be overcome." Isaac, priest of the cells. One day they came to make Abba Isaac a priest. Hearing this, he ran away to Egypt. He went into a field and hid himself in the midst of the hay. So the clergy went after him in pursuit. Reaching the same field, they stopped there to rest a little, for it was night. They unharnessed the ass to let it graze. The ass went close to the old man, so when dawn came and they looked for her, they found Abba Isaac too, which filled them with astonishment. They wanted to bind him, but he did not allow it, saying, "I will not run away again, for it is the will of God, and wherever I flee, I find that." Abba Isaac said, "When I was younger, I lived with Abba Cronius. He would never tell me to do any work, although he was old and tremulous, but he himself got up and offered food to me and to everyone. I lived with Abba Theodore of Fermi, and he did not tell me to do anything either, but he himself set the table and said to me, 'Brother, if you want to, come and eat.' I replied, 'I have come to you to help you. Why do you never tell me to do anything?' But the old man gave me no reply whatever. So I went to tell the old men. They came and said to him, 'Abba, the brother has come to your holiness in order to help you. Why do you never tell him to do anything?' The old man said to them, 'Am I a cenobite that I should give him orders? As far as I am concerned, I do not tell him anything, but if he wishes, he can do what he sees me doing.' For that moment I took the initiative and did what the old man was about to do. As for him, what he did in silence, so he taught me to work in silence." Abba Isaac and Abba Abraham lived together. When he came home one day, Abba Abraham found Abba Isaac in tears. He asked him, "Why are you weeping?" The old man replied, "Why should we not weep? For where have we to go? Our fathers are dead. Manual work is not enough to pay for the cost of the journey by boat for us to go and visit the old men. And so henceforth we are orphans. That is why I am weeping." Abba Isaac said, "I knew a brother who wanted to eat an ear of wheat while he was harvesting in the field. He said to the foreman of the field, 'Will you allow me to eat an ear of wheat?' The latter was astonished at these words and said to him, 'Father, this field belongs to you. Why are you asking me this?' See how conscientious the brother was. He also said to the brethren, 'Do not bring young boys here. 4 churches in Scetes are deserted because of boys.' It was said of Abba Isaac that he ate the ashes from the incense offering with his bread. Abba Isaac said to the brethren, 'Our fathers and Abba Pambo, wore old garments woven from palm fronds and mended all over. Now you are foppishly dressed. Go away from here. Leave this place." When they prepared to go harvesting, he said to them, "I am not giving you any more directions, because you would not keep them." One of the fathers related how, in the time of Abba Isaac, a brother came into the church of the cells one day, wearing a little hood. The old man turned him out, saying, "This place is for monks. You are a secular, and you may not live here." Abba Isaac said, "I have never allowed a thought against my brother who has grieved me to enter my cell. I have seen to it that no brother should return to his cell with a thought against me." Abba Isaac had a serious illness which lasted for a long time. The brother made him a little broth out of flour, into which he put some fruit. The old man did not want to taste it, so the brother tempted him, saying, "Take a little, father, because you are ill." But the old man said to him, "Truly, brother, I should like this illness to last for 30 years. Concerning Abba Isaac, it was said that when he was at the point of death, the old men gathered round him, saying, "What shall we do without you?" He said to them, "See how I have walked before you. If you want to follow me and keep the commandments of God, God will send you his grace and will protect this place. But if you do not keep his commandments, you cannot remain in this place. We ourselves, when our fathers were at the point of dying, were full of grief. But, keeping the Lord's commandments and their admonitions, we have held fast as though they were still with us. Do the same in your turn, and you will be saved." Abba Isaac said that Abba Pambo used to say, "The monk's garment should be such that he could throw it out of his cell for 3 days, and no one would take it." Joseph of Panephysis. Some fathers went to Panephysis to see Abba Joseph, and ask him what kind of reception they should give to the brethren to whom they gave lodging, whether they ought to mix with them and speak freely with them. Before they asked him, the old man said to his disciple, "Consider what I am going to do today, and remain still." Then the old man put 2 mats, one on his right and one on his left, and said, "Sit down." Then he went inside his cell and put on beggar's garments. Then he came out again and walked in between them. After this he went back to put on his own clothes again. Coming out once more, he sat down between them. They were astonished at the things he did. So he said to them, "Have you considered what I have done?" They replied that they had. "Was I changed by those contemptible garments?" They said, "No." Then he said to them, "I remained the same. Then, in both sets of clothes, the former did not change me, and the latter have not done me harm. This is how we ought to behave when we receive visiting brethren, according to the gospel which says, 'Render to Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and to God the things which are God's.' So, when brothers come, let us receive them and speak freely with them. On the other hand, when we are alone, we ought to weep, in order that we may persevere." At these words the visitors were filled with astonishment, because he had answered what they had in their hearts, even before they had asked him, and they gave glory to God. Abba Pimin said to Abba Joseph, "Tell me how to become a monk." He said, "If you want to find rest here below, and hereafter, in all circumstances say, 'Who am I?' and do not judge anyone." The same Abba asked Abba Joseph another question, saying, "What should I do when the passions attack me? Should I resist them or let them enter?" The old man said to him, "Let them enter and fight against them." So he returned to Scetes, where he remained. Now someone from Thebes came to Scetes and said to the brethren, "I asked Abba Joseph if I ought to resist the passions when they approach, or let them enter, and he replied, I ought not to allow them the smallest entry, but cut them off immediately. When Abba learned that Abba Joseph had spoken to the brother from Thebes in this way, he got up and went to see him at Panephysis, and said, Abba, I consulted you about my thoughts, and you have said one thing to me, and another to the Theban. The old man said to him, Do you not know that I love you? He said, Yes. And did you not say to me, Speak to me as you speak to yourself? That is right. Then the old man said, Truly, if the passions enter you, and you fight them, you become stronger. I spoke to you as to myself. But there are others who cannot profit in this way if the passions approach them, and so they must cut them off immediately. A brother asked Abba Joseph, saying, What should I do, for I do not have the strength to bear evil, nor to work for charity's sake? The old man said to him, If you cannot do any of these things, at least guard your conscience from all evil with regard to your neighbor, and you will be saved. One of the brethren related this. One day I went to Lower Heracleopolis to see Abba Joseph. Now in the monastery there was a very good mulberry tree. At early dawn he said to me, Go and eat. But as it was Friday, I did not go because of the fast. So I asked him, For God's sake, explain this to me. Here you are saying to me, Go and eat, but I did not go because of the fast. I blushed for shame, thinking of your command. I asked myself, what was the old man's intention in saying that? And I wondered if I ought to have done it, since he told it to me. At the beginning, the fathers do not speak to the brothers as they ought to do, but rather in an ambiguous manner. And if they see that they do what is right, then they no longer speak like that, but tell them the truth when they know they are obedient in all things. Abba Joseph said to Abba Lot, You cannot be a monk unless you become like a consuming fire. Abba Lot went to see Abba Joseph and said to him, Abba, as far as I can, I say my little office, I fast a little, I pray and meditate, I live in peace, and as far as I can, I purify my thoughts. What else can I do? Then the old man stood up and stretched his hands towards heaven. His fingers became like 10 lamps of fire, and he said to him, If you will, you can become all flame. A brother asked Abba Joseph this, I want to leave the monastery and live as a solitary. The old man said to him, Go wherever you find your soul is most at peace, and stay there without blame. The brother said to him, But I am at peace both in the monastery and in the solitary life. Will you tell me what to do? The old man said to him, If you are at peace both in the monastery and in the solitary life, put these two thoughts as it were in the balance, and wherever you see your thoughts will profit most and make progress, that is what you should do. One of the old men joined one of his companions and went with him to visit Abba Joseph. He said to him, Tell your disciple to saddle the ass. The other replied, Call him, and he will do whatever you want. What is his name? I do not know. How long has he been with you, and you do not know his name? He replied, For 2 years. The other said, If in 2 years you have not learnt your disciple's name, do I need to know it for a single day? Some brothers happened one day to meet at Abba Joseph's cell. While they were sitting there questioning him, he became cheerful, and filled with happiness he said to them, I am a king today, for I reign over the passions. It was said of Abba Joseph of Panephysis that when he was at the point of death, while some old men were seated round him, he looked towards the window and saw the devil sitting close to it. Then calling his disciple, he said to him, Bring my stick, for there is one there who thinks I am getting old and have no more strength against him. As he gripped his stick, the old men saw that the devil fled through the window like a dog and disappeared from sight. James. Abba James said, It is better to receive hospitality than to offer it. He warned anyone who receives praise to think of his sins and realize that he does not deserve what has been said of him. He also said, "Just as a lamp lights up a dark room, so the fear of God, when it penetrates the heart of a man, illuminates him, teaching him all the virtues and commandments of God." He also said, "We do not need words only, for at the present time there are many words among men, but we need works, for this is what is required, not words which do not bear fruit." Hierax. A brother questioned Abba Hierax, saying, "Give me a word. How can I be saved?" The old man said to him, "Sit in your cell, and if you are hungry, eat. If you are thirsty, drink. Only do not speak evil of anyone, and you will be saved." He also said, "I have never uttered or wished to hear a worldly remark." John the Eunuch. In his youth, Abba John the Eunuch questioned an old man, "How have you been able to carry out the work of God in peace? For we cannot do it, not even with labor." The old man said, "We are able to do it, because we considered the work of God to be primary, and bodily needs to be subsidiary. But you hold bodily necessities to be primary, and the work of God to be secondary. That is why you labor, and that is why the Savior said to the disciples, 'Seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be yours as well.'" Abba John said, "Our father Abba Anthony said he had never put his own personal advantage before the good of a brother." Abba John the Sicilian, hegumen of Ratu, said to the brethren, "My sons, in the same way that we have fled from the world, let us equally flee from the desires of the flesh." He also said, "Let us imitate our fathers. They lived in this place with much austerity and peace." He also said, "My sons, let us not make this place dirty, since our fathers cleansed it from the demons." He also said, "This is a place for asceticism, not for worldly business." John of the Cells. Abba John of the Cells told us this story. There was in Egypt a very rich and beautiful courtesan, to whom noble and powerful people came. Now one day she happened to be near the church, and she wanted to go in. The subdeacon, who was standing at the doors, would not allow her to enter, saying, "You are not worthy to enter the house of God, for you are impure." The bishop heard the noise of their argument and came out. Then the courtesan said to him, "He would not let me enter the church." So the bishop said to her, "You are not allowed to enter it, for you are not pure." She was filled with compunction and said to him, "Henceforth I will not commit fornication any more." The bishop said to her, "If you bring your wealth here, I shall know that you will not commit fornication any more." She brought her wealth, and the bishop burnt it all in the fire. Then she went into the church, weeping and saying, "If this has happened to me below, what would I not have suffered above?" So she was converted and became a vessel of election. John of the Thebaid. Abba John of the Thebaid said, "First of all, the monk must gain humility, for it is the first commandment of the Lord, who said, 'Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.'" Isidore the priest. It was said of Abba Isidore the priest that one day a brother came to invite him to a meal. But the old man refused to go, saying, "Adam was deceived by food and had to live outside paradise." The brother said to him, "Are you so afraid to leave your cell?" The other responded, "My child, I am afraid because the devil, like a roaring lion, seeketh whom he may devour." He often said, "When someone gives himself a drink, he will not escape being attacked by thoughts." Lot, indeed being constrained by his daughters, got drunk with wine, and through the effect of drunkenness, the devil easily brought him to a shameful act of fornication. Abba Isidore said, "If you truly desire the kingdom of heaven, despise riches and respond to divine favors." He also said, "It is impossible for you to live according to God if you love pleasures and money." He also said, "If you fast regularly, do not be inflated with pride. But if you think highly of yourself because of it, then you had better eat meat. It is better for a man to eat meat than to be inflated with pride and to glorify himself." He also said, "Disciples must love as their fathers those who are truly their masters, and fear them as their leaders. They should not lose their fear because of love, nor because of fear should love be obscured." He also said, "If you desire salvation, do everything that leads you to it." It was said of Abba Isidore that when a brother went to see him, he would escape to the furthest corner of his cell. The brethren said to him, "Abba, what are you doing?" He said, "Even the wild animals, when they flee to their lairs, are saved." He said this for the edification of the brethren. John the Persian. A demoniac boy came one day to be healed, and some brothers from an Egyptian monastery arrived. As one old man was coming out to meet them, he saw a brother sinning with the boy. But he did not accuse him. He said, "If God who has made them sees them, and does not burn them, who am I to blame them?" One of the fathers related of Abba John the Persian that his great charity had brought him to a profound innocence. He dwelt in Arabia of Egypt. One day he borrowed some money from a brother and brought him flax for his work. Then a brother came and asked him, "Abba, give me a little flax, so that I can make myself a cloak." He gave him some readily. Similarly, another brother came and asked him, "Give me a little flax, so that I can make some cloth." So he gave him some too. Others came and asked him for things, and he simply gave them cheerfully. Later the owner of the money came to reclaim it. The old man said to him, "I will go and get it for you." Because he could not return it to him, he went to Abba James, who was a deacon, to ask him to give him some money so that he could return it to the brother. On the way he found a coin on the ground, but he did not touch it. He said a prayer and returned to his cell. But the brother came once more, pestering him about the money, and the old man said to him, "I am very worried about it." Once again he went, found the coin on the ground, where it was lying, and once again he said a prayer and returned to his cell. But the brother came back to pester him as before. The old man said to him, "This time I will certainly bring it to you." Once again he got up and went to the place where the coin lay on the ground. He said a prayer and went to tell Abba James, "Abba, as I was coming here, I found this coin on the road. Please make it known in the neighborhood in case someone has lost it. And if its owner is found, give it to him." So the old man went and asked about it for 3 days, but no one who had lost a piece of money came. Then the old man said to Abba James, "Then, if no one has lost it, give it to this brother, for I owe it him. As I was coming to ask you for alms in order to give him his due, I found it." The old man was astonished that, having a debt and finding that piece, he had not picked it up at once and given it to him. It was equally to his credit that when someone came to borrow something for Abba John, he did not give it him himself, but said to the brother, "Go and help yourself to whatever you need." And when someone brought anything back to him, he would say, "Put it back where it belongs." If the borrower did not return the thing, he did not say anything to him. It was said of Abba John the Persian that when some evildoers came to him, he took a basin and wanted to wash their feet, but they were filled with confusion and began to do penance. Someone said to Abba John the Persian, "We have borne great afflictions for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Shall we inherit it?" The old man said, "As for me, I am confident I shall obtain the inheritance of Jerusalem on high, which is written in the heavens. Why should I not be confident? I have been hospitable like Abraham, meek like Moses, holy like Aaron, patient like Job, humble like David, a hermit like John, filled with compunction like Jeremiah, a master like Paul, full of faith like Peter, wise like Solomon. Like the thief, I trust that he who of his natural goodness has given me all that will also grant me the kingdom. John the Theban. It was said of young John the Theban, a disciple of Abba Amuas, that he spent 12 years serving the old man when he was ill. He stayed sitting with him on his mat, but the old man did not pay much attention to him. So much so that though he worked very hard for him, never did he say to him, "Salvation be yours." But when he was at the point of death, and the old men surrounded him, he took his hand and said to him, "Salvation be yours, salvation be yours, salvation be yours." Then he entrusted him to the old man, saying, "He is an angel, not a man." John, disciple of Abba Paul. It was said of Abba John, the disciple of Abba Paul, that his obedience was very great. Now there were some tombs thereabouts where a hyena lived. The old man saw some dung in the place, and told John to go and fetch it. He said, "What shall I do about the hyena, Abba?" The old man said to him jokingly, "If she sets upon you, tie her up and bring her here." So in the evening the brother went there, and lo, the hyena fell upon him. According to the old man's instruction, he rushed to catch her, but the hyena ran away. He pursued her, saying, "My Abba says I am to tie you up." He seized her and bound her. Now the old man was uneasy, and sat waiting for him. When he returned, he brought the hyena on a rope. When the old man saw this, he was filled with wonder, but he wanted to humiliate him, so he struck him and said, "Fool, why have you brought a silly dog here?" Then the old man set her free at once, and let her go. Isaac the Theban. One day Abba Isaac went to a monastery. He saw a brother committing a sin, and he condemned him. When he returned to the desert, an angel of the Lord came and stood in front of the door of the cell, and said, "I will not let you enter." But he persisted, saying, "What is the matter?" And the angel replied, "God has sent me to ask you where you want to throw the guilty brother whom you have condemned." Immediately he repented and said, "I have sinned, forgive me." Then the angel said, "Get up, God has forgiven you, but from now on, be careful not to judge someone before God has done so." It was said of Abba Apollo that he had a disciple named Isaac, perfectly trained in all good works, and he had the gift of ceaseless prayer at the time of the Eucharist. When he came to church, he did not allow anyone to join him. He used to say that all things are good in their proper time, for there is a time for everything. As soon as the synaxis was concluded, he fled as though pursued by fire and hurried back to his cell. Now at the conclusion of the synaxis, a piece of bread and a cup of wine was often given to the brethren, but he did not accept it. Not that he wanted to refuse the agape of the brethren, but because he wished to preserve the ceaseless prayer of the service. Now it happened that he fell ill. When they heard of it, the brethren came to visit him. Sitting beside them, they asked him, "Abba Isaac, why do you flee from the brethren at the end of the service?" He said to them, "I am not fleeing from the brethren, but from the wicked ruse of the demons. When someone is holding a lighted lamp, if he lingers in the open air, the lamp goes out because of the wind. We are the same, if, when we are illuminated by the Holy Eucharist, we linger outside our cell, our spirit is darkened." Such was the way of life of the holy Abba Isaac. Joseph of Thebes. Abba Joseph the Theban said, 3 works are approved in the eyes of the Lord: when a man is ill and temptations fall upon him, if he welcomes them with gratitude. Secondly, when someone carries out all his works purely in the presence of God, having no regard for anything human. In the third place, when someone remains in submission to a spiritual father in complete renunciation of his own will. This last will gain a lofty crown indeed. As for me, I have chosen illness. Hilarion. From Palestine, Abba Hilarion went to the mountain to Abba Anthony. Abba Anthony said to him, "You are welcome, torch which awakens the day." Abba Hilarion said, "Peace to you, pillar of light, giving light to the world." Iscyrion. The Holy Fathers were making predictions about the last generation. They said, "What have we ourselves done?" One of them, the great Abba Iscyrion, replied, "We ourselves have fulfilled the commandments of God." The others replied, "And those who have come after us, what will they do?" He said, "They will struggle to achieve half our works." They said, "And to those who come after them, what will happen?" He said, "The men of that generation will not accomplish any works at all, and temptation will come upon them, and those who will be approved in that day will be greater than either us or our fathers."